L'intervento in questo momento più atteso è quello di John Walters, direttore di una rivistina poco conosciuta. Do you understand something in Italian? No. No? But my English is not so correct. So I learned English from Tarzan, you know? I'm Tarzan, you Jane, so I think che è meglio che io parli in italiano. Magazine è un mito per tutti coloro che di grafica vivono e di cose belle vivono. L'intervento di John però avrà una duplice veste. Da un lato è una veste che parla del suo lavoro, ribadisco è arrivato dall'Inghilterra per questa cosa e noi lo ringraziamo, però lui ha un doppio ruolo. Il suo ruolo è questo, di questa rivista, ma lui si occupa di un'altra rivista si chiama Pulp, ed è un prodotto eccezionale perché, come in parte anche nell'intervento di Leslie è stato detto, c'è una realtà che produce dei mezzi di comunicazione eccellenti basati sul concetto di editoria pura, che sia indipendente, belle cose, belle riviste, per parlare di qualcosa che magari è collegata a un'azienda. L'azienda in questione è Fedrigoni, che ha avuto la gentilezza di venirci incontro e di venire a questa giornata e di portare una serie di materiali e di portare John, di cui lo ringraziamo. Ma questo non è un prodotto diverso da una rivista di quelle che abbiamo visto. Ha un cliente, diciamo, che è quello che dice io voglio che comunichi al nostro target. Poi, Giovanna, se dico cose sbagliate sei benvenuta a poter intervenire dicendo cose più corrette, però il concetto è c'è un prodotto, racconta qualcosa di interessante a un utente che siete voi che si occupano di grafica, di cose belle, di creatività, di idee. Ovviamente ha un supporto, il supporto è quello delle carte di Fedrigoni, ma è ovvio, ma a dimostrazione che i supporti non sono solo supporti, sono parte del linguaggio, e quando si parla di carta, non è carta, è quel tipo di carta, quei tipi di carta, quel linguaggio che è forte quanto un carattere, un'immagine, un tutto. Allora l'intervento di John è importante perché dietro un progetto di questo tipo c'è un grande studio di editoria e forse ci sono delle occasioni per capire che l'editoria vuol dire tante cose, ma di sicuro vuol dire qualità. Signori, John Walters, grazie per essere qui con noi. Grazie mille.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much in advance for listening to this, what I hope will be a short talk in English only. I'm very grateful to the fact that you're prepared to sit here for a few minutes and listen to me talk in English, and I will try to explain things. Our favorite Italian translator, Massimo Gonzato, is here in case of emergencies, but I will also attempt to answer any questions you wish to fire at me later on, either about Pulp or Magazine. But the slideshow I'm about to present is about Pulp magazine. This is how you find me should you wish to write for Pulp magazine or contact us with ideas or feedback in any way. And as some of you, I hope, will know, we're becoming increasingly enthusiastic users of social media. There's a few Instagram pictures from today, and we use Twitter as well, and it's been quite a nice way to let people know that Pulp magazine exists. If you haven't yet had the chance to hold a copy of Pulp, smell it, see what it looks and feels like and reads like, there are a few copies at the back of the room, both on the left and the right at the back there. And as you can see from this picture, we have produced 6 issues to date. It's been quite an adventure for the I magazine team to make a magazine that's not I, that's something else, that doesn't compete with I, but complements what we do, and is also, in this case, a kind of indie magazine which is for a brand, it's for a client, in fact a very big brand, that's Fedrigoni Paper, which is a great Italian manufacturer of paper with branches all over the world. It's been part of the challenge of making pulp that we communicate with the different parts of the Fedrigoni empire, the people who make and sell the paper, but also the designers and the publishers and other project managers and people who actually use Fedrigoni, choose Fedrigoni or pay for it out of their own pockets. So there is a new kind of network that you make when you do a branded magazine, which is different to the relationship with the readers of a magazine such as I, for example. On the other hand, we don't feel we're doing anything very radically different. But I guess what we're trying to do in terms of other branded magazines is invest this genre publishing with a little bit of the spirit of indie magazines. If after the discussions earlier today we can still make any distinction between indie and mainstream, but maybe that's something we can talk about a little later. Now, just to be clear, I am the editor of I magazine, and I'm also the editor of Pulp magazine, but of course you need a lot of people, good people, to make a magazine, both, thank you very much, both far and near, and the core team that makes Pulp in London, in our studio in de Beauvoir Town in North London, is myself as editor, the legendary Simon Esterson as art director, Holly Catford, who's Simon's right-hand person as art editor, and my assistant, Sarah Snaith, as assistant editor. Everyone works on I as well, and but we put, at regular intervals, we have to put our Pulp hat on and think about the contents of this magazine. And we began in 2014 with an issue that we decided would be themed and perhaps relevant to some of the discussions today. We decided that the theme of the first issue should be digital. Not that we made a digital edition, but we wanted to remind people that digital doesn't just mean looking at stuff on your phone. Digital means all the very ingenious ways in which we can put words and pictures together in the great universe of design, editorial design, and publishing. So there was, in addition to our cover star, Brian Edmondson from C Design. And I'm going to ask you to remember this image because I'll come back to this a little later. We also looked at digital print, the world of digital print, and the way that different designers and publishers and agencies are using what you can now do with these fantastic machines such as the HP Indigo to really rethink the way you use print and paper. So this was both putting together a kind of a graphic design magazine. We had this big interview with Brian Edmondson from C, but we were also treating it as a research project to find out more about the way people were using digital printing. And of course, Fedrigoni makes paper which is specifically for digital printing, which is different for the paper you might specify for litho or letterpress or packaging or other things. So it was a great way to kick off the magazine. In fact, we decided to make the first 4 issues we did themed issues. So this was following through the digital theme. And although this isn't digital in the sense of its production, this is digital in the sense that it's all about mathematics. It's about the golden section. It was a project made by a very adventurous publishing company in London called Graphic Design who commissioned a series of illustrators to make work based on the golden section. For the second issue of Pulp, we decided the theme would be luxury. And although this feature, which is about the photographer's gallery publication for the Deutsche Börse Prize, was not specifically a luxury product, the photographs by Irish photographer Richard Moss do have a kind of luxurious sense. But the main section, which deals with the issue of print and paper for luxury products, was illustrated by a French illustrator called Jean Julien, who has become increasingly popular over the past couple of years. Simon and Holly commissioned Jean to do an image that would somehow convey the idea of luxury of the person opening an amazing package. We also interviewed the Spanish or Catalan designer Javier Bas, who we knew through separately through the top awards which Fedrigoni holds each year, the top application awards for people using Fedrigoni's products. And we found a story from France which is about the photographer Gerard Uferas, who had made a photo book, a kind of photo essay about Dior, behind the scenes at Dior. And because these were monochrome images, we were able to print this on a different kind of paper to our normal color images. One of the factors that comes into the design and production of Pulp is that we specify several different papers for each issue. This is not something new to Simon and myself. Every issue of I uses 2 or 3 or 4 different paper stocks. But with Pulp, of course, it becomes part of the reason for publishing. It's part of the fun, I hope, of receiving an issue and actually, while you read and find your way through the magazine, you're also experiencing the paper and seeing how our texts and images work on that paper. This presents a challenge for art direction sometimes because you have to be careful about which images work on textured paper, on matte paper, gloss paper. And in fact, in some of the recent issues, we've made a point of having longer sections of text on colored matte paper as a way of actually having a bit more fun with the binding scheme and the paper use. For our third issue, we chose the theme of craft. Again, I include a little close-up of the cover just to show you that the stock of each cover is different. So when you pick them up, they actually all feel different from each other. Of course, it's a magazine as well, which means there is a consistent grid, there is a consistent set of typefaces, there's a consistent approach to the way we put the magazines together. But within that, as in all editorial design, we push and experiment with what we can do within the constraints of that system and grid. For the craft issue, we published a story about the use of 3D printing in letterpress. So it's a kind of bizarre combination of 19th century technology, letterpress, with 21st century technology, which was to make fonts, a whole alphabet, through the techniques of 3D printing. The typeface was designed by A2, British Danish design practice, and but it was printed letterpress in the traditional manner to make a limited series of posters which were printed on Fedrigoni paper. We've also started to look increasingly at food packaging and the innovative work being done, in this case by the design agency New, in packaging food. And we looked at the beautiful work of the letterpress printer Alessandra Zanella with a piece by Alessandro Corubolo. This gave us an opportunity to, well, in fact, the piece demanded that we use a gatefold to really give an idea of the very beautiful poetic work from this letterpress studio. For number 4, we opted for the theme of art. I interviewed the Brighton, formerly Brighton Practice, Brighton the Corners, who make all the catalogues and printed material for the artist Anish Kapoor. And in making work for an artist who works with big, massive sculptures, massive installations, the paper and the materiality of their art catalogues is very much part of the way they think, the way they design, including in this case the effect of a stain going all the way through the opening pages of the catalogue. We also interviewed designer Matt Appleton, whose practice, also a member of the London collective Lagan, whose practice is very much based on the art world. The diaspora of pulp writers and contributors is something that we are constantly striving to expand. Hence the inclusion of my email at the beginning of this talk. When I give a talk like this, I always say that anyone here is open to suggest ideas for iMagazine, and equally they are also very welcome to suggest ideas for Pulp magazine. We're not always looking for accomplished writers, we're looking for people with something to say about design and paper and creativity, and someone with perhaps with inside knowledge or access to things that we may not know about, things that are worth uncovering in a magazine like Pulp. This is an article about the American designer John Alcorn, who actually spent a lot of his adult working life in Italy. And it's written by Martin Collier, an art director who is also a very good writer about illustration and commissioning illustration. For our 5th issue, we decided to go against the themed program and instead to make the contents more eclectic. And it's been part of our ambition with Pulp to really seek out work from all the places where Fedrigoni sells paper, all the places where people use Fedrigoni, not necessarily the same things. Our cover artist in this case is Laura Lamb, the veteran Swiss designer who worked in Milan in the 50s and 60s and really had rather been left out of the history of Italian graphic design in that period. And there was a kind of revival of interest in her work and an exhibition in Switzerland, which made a good occasion to do an in-depth interview with Laura Lamb. Broadening the net of the geographical net of Pulp, this was an interview with a German-Spanish design partnership. And in the forthcoming issue, we've got as far as New Zealand, which is another first, a book about coffee, where the publisher decided that since Italy was the home of the espresso, that his book about New Zealand coffee should be printed on Italian paper. One of my first meetings when I came to Milan a couple of years ago was with designer Emanuele Ricci, who has a studio not many miles from here, and had designed a new paper called Spillo for Fedrigoni, inspired by, as it says here, music and things from the natural world. Emanuele collects all kinds of things on his travels. He walks through the forest, he picks up little elements, leaves, mold, stones, and these all inform his work. And again, part of the nice thing about doing a magazine like this is that we can actually put an example of Spillo in the piece. You can actually feel for yourself what we're talking about, as well as read the story behind it. And for the latest issue, we interviewed an Italian designer, Giulia Garbin, who's based in London. She's studied at the Royal College of Art a few years ago and has now made London her home. But what really caught our attention was a project she did called, I'll have to show you in the mag, Tipi di Torino, a series of lino cuts about a letterpress printing works in Turin. Very beautiful project using lino cuts and letterpress printing. At the same time, Giulia is doing completely contemporary things, sort of interactive installations, working with a beatboxer, doing websites. And in a way, she seemed like the ideal example of the contemporary designers that interest us, both in I and in Pulp, who really can work right across the spectrum from digital to print, and also find new ways of doing things in the physical world, which is the world that we all live in, after all. In this issue, we also tackled subjects such as food packaging, again, and a workshop at the Tipoteca in Cornuda, where an American designer, Paul Shaw, takes an international party around Italy each summer. It's a project called Legacy of Letters. And the highlight of this tour was a 4-day workshop at Tipoteca itself, hosted by Alan Kitching, the letterpress artist. Alan is someone that we know through iMagazine and also through a new book which is coming out in April called Alan Kitching, A Life in Letterpress, which Simon Esserson designed and I wrote. That's coming out of Lawrence King later on. And we've been working closely with Alan. We've always been very impressed by the way he's made quite arcane techniques of letterpress relevant all over again, both as a teaching method and also in the very beautiful work he produces as personal work and also for clients. I also thoroughly enjoyed meeting Giancarlo Illiprandi in London last summer and interviewed him for the latest Pulp, 90-year-old Italian designer who's really been through many different phases of Italian design and typography. And that really brings me to the end of my little dialogue about Pulp. And I have to say, of course, that it's made by these people, Simon and Holly, Sarah, and myself, plus a very big network of translators and writers and photographers. And I guess to stay with the theme of this conference, I'd like to say that a magazine has always been a great way of putting together quite disparate materials and making them work in an object you can pick up and flick through. and it can still be reinvented, and I think there's still a great deal of enjoyment to be had. I saw one comment by one of the earlier contributors that we should think of the reader as an explorer. So rather than the idea of a reader who sits down and reads a text from beginning to end, that you now explore through text and pictures. But my view is actually that this is the way that magazines have always worked. It's always been the appeal of a journal, a magazine, that you can flick through the pages, concentrate on things that catch your eye in the first time, go back to things later because their relevance changes or your mood changes, and that the art of editorial design is in making the reader feel comfortable with those elements within the structure of a magazine. So you're providing a kind of comfort zone for the reader in the regular structure, but you can be prepared to surprise and throw in as many different elements, different writers, different kinds of images as you wish. So again, there are certain elements in Pulp which could be presented digitally, but the beauty of making it for a paper company is that we have this job of actually showing the papers they make. So that's given really an extra kick to the challenge of making Pulp. And number 7 is actually going through production as I speak. So I hope if you are people who use paper, you can all get one from Fedrigoni. I should also say that we have an extra challenge I haven't really mentioned, which is that we also do a French and Spanish edition. So we've had quite a lot of fun in actually commissioning articles to be translated into 3 languages, and then translating those headlines into something that we hope means something in those 3 different languages. Thank you once again for listening, and if you have any questions, please fire away.